Hi, welcome back. My name is Mathieu. I'm a correspondent for Reuters. It gives me great pleasure to be with you again to begin with this new session where we will discuss a very topical and comical subject, which is protect your assets, securing the data supply chain. And I'm very happy to be discussing this subject with two young and promising people who work at two very representative French companies which deal with cybersecurity, which is CybelAngel, which is a leading digital risk management platform which monitors and detects risks across all layers of the internet, and Vade, a global leader in predictive email defense, which protects 1 billion mailboxes in 76 countries. So Camille Charaudeau is the Chief Program Officer for CybelAngel. Thank you for joining us. And Adrien Gendre is Chief Sales Officer for Vade. Thanks for joining us as well. I'm not very familiar with data supply chain, so I had to look up for the definition, and it came very quickly that it's the life cycle process of data, so selection, procurement, transfer, quality assurance, warehouses, so storage, data management, and transformation. So which means that protecting this whole process is of a critical and crucial importance in today's time. So I'm very happy to be able to explore this further with you guys. So maybe just to kick off, maybe very basically, I mean, how do you apply artificial intelligence tools, and which aspects of artificial intelligence do you apply to your solutions? Maybe can you start? Camille?
Sure, Mathieu, and hi everyone. So yes, what a name, the data supply chain. I think all in all, what it means is that in our everyday lives, there are more and more data that we need to cope with, and most of the most sensitive data that we as company handle today, they are already at the hand of our supply chain. Maybe third parties, but also fourth parties, fifth parties, and so on. And the problem is that we think that this data is secure, but in many cases, it's not the case, because those companies that we work with, they do not have the same security standards. And maybe a good way to illustrate what I'm saying is to give you a couple of examples. We see that in the press every single day. So I just looked at this morning or last week's press, looking for a couple of leaks that you all heard about. Maybe there was one about some of the major booking sites, hotels.com, booking.com, expedia.com, leaking more than 10 million travelers specific information, including credit card details last week through a third-party software vendor. Another one was the Texas driving license. 27 million of drivers in Texas in the US, where data has leaked, including their license numbers, names, date of birth, PII, and so on. And maybe the third one that you may be aware of is Mashable, this major media site in the US. And here again, 45 million unique visitors leaked full names, locations, email addresses, genders, IP. So you see, this can be massive, and you need to find ways through AI, through human expertise, and a mix of both, to secure that data, so those leaks do not transform into actual breaches. So this is where we apply artificial intelligence, and we can get into the details afterwards.
Yes, Adrien?
Yes, I think it's important to see how hackers see an opportunity in the data supply chain, because when you think about it, each company has suppliers, and each company is also a supplier of someone, other company. And data is shared across suppliers across the chain, like Camille just said it, just because that's how we execute the service and the contract between companies. So suppliers have the responsibility for the data of the customers they're providing the service to. And therefore, they are a target for the hackers, and they are a target whatever the size of the company, whatever big they are. And it's interesting to see a lot of small companies think hacking happens to somebody else and anyone else, but actually, or that they are not big enough to receive an attack. Actually, 52% of the attacks are targeting small, medium businesses. And so what we are seeing is that hackers see that as an opportunity. You are a very big company, you are very highly secure, but you use smaller companies as a supply chain. And the hackers, they will target the smaller companies to get back to the big companies. And we see that through phishing, through malware. They try to hack mailboxes, they compromise data, and etc. And that's where we use AI. We protect mailboxes, and that's 92% of the attacks. They start with an email. So combining the data for the email filtering, there is a need to protect the whole supply chain to make sure the data cannot be hacked.
So, Camille, can you go a little further? I mean, technically, I mean, how does it work? I mean, how do your solutions work in practice?
Yeah. So the way CybelAngel works is that we basically scan the entire internet across a variety of layers. So that's very important that we collect massively some data, some documents, some of them being highly confidential, belonging to companies that we work with. So that's really step one, making sure that we scan everything and every day collect somewhere around 1 billion, 1.2 billion files a day. From there, what we do, of course, is we just can't handle this manually. So here's where machine learning starts to play with all the data pipeline and processing that we have. So we want to match keywords of our customers. Say we work with a big pharmaceutical company, the first keyword that we want to look at would be the company name. Let's say Sanofi, for example. And this matched against all the file names and file paths of these documents I was describing makes already a first filter. But then not all of it is critical, right? There will be some that are legit mentions of the company name, some others that are really not legit and highly critical. So this is where we apply machine learning, looking at the file path, the file name, and the actual file content, to see what type of information is available publicly out there, what we would call a leak, and what needs to be done, to take it down, to alert our customers once it's out there. So for us, machine learning means going from every day about 1 billion files to somewhere around 1 or 2 incidents that are effectively pushed to our customers, to those companies that have seen their critical data being exposed. So that's the pipeline and what it looks like with the various steps in the middle. That's normal, many algorithms in there, but roughly this is the filtering in place.
What about Vade Secure, and how do you apply machine learning to your processes?
So we need machine learning and we need AI, and more recently we released computer vision, because we are facing a major challenge. On the other side, we are facing more and more structured hackers. We are seeing them being organized, like any major company will be organized. We're seeing some groups that are dedicated to build a framework, a platform, so other groups can use as a service and localize their attacks to the targets. And just to give an example, we could see a phishing wave, an attack of 100,000 phishing emails. And those 100,000 emails, they will all be different from the code point of view. They all look the same, but the code will be different. They do that to make sure every single email is unique, so any classic system cannot recognize it as a wave and block it. And so that's why more recently, for example, we released computer vision. So the scientists call it deep learning. The goal is, instead of just scanning the code of an email, we will be scanning the visual rendering of that email or the visual rendering of that web page. And that, you need a lot of data to have that precisely working. when you build a machine learning, it's not magic. When you build a machine learning from a sample of data, if you have a small subset of data, then you're not going to have an accurate machine learning. And then you need expertise, because your machine learning needs to rely on criteria. It's called features in the machine learning world. If you have a lot of features, your machine learning is not also accurate. It's like a human brain. If you have too many inputs, then you cannot take a precise decision. So you need a lot of data. And for that, we are gathering 90 billion data points a day from 1 billion mailboxes. But you also need the expertise to basically show to the machine learning algorithm what it should recognize and learn from.
Okay. Let me ask you something about Europe and the way Europe wants to see its databases evolve. I mean, there is a lot of talk about bringing together data for European players on an open source basis. So how to secure these databases when the whole architecture is based on an open source? I mean, who wants to start? Adrien?
Yes. So there are two philosophies about this. Some people say because it's open source, then everybody can look at the code and see the weakness of it. And others say because it's open source, you have so many contributors, then your software is actually much more secure than if you do it privately in your company. So an open source model can work and can be very strong against privacy, especially securing data. It's different in our world where it's securing emails because it's always changing. But for database, an open source model can work, but you need to make sure there is a massive amount of contributors in order to reach that threshold where you have so many contributors that if there are any weakness in the code, vulnerability, then it's fixed right away. And in that case, you can have a successful and strong solution, potentially stronger than some commercial solutions.
Camille, do you want to?
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Adrien just said, but maybe I want to start with one stat to share. You know, it's not mine, it's not ours at CybelAngel, but it's from the latest Verizon incident report on data breach from 2020. You know, about 82% of all data breaches, they start with somehow misconfiguration on the human side. So whether you use a proprietary technology or an open source technology to store your data, and you want to do this at massive scale, what you'll always have to take into consideration to secure the infrastructure that you put in place is the human error, the potential for human errors. Because the point is really to make sure, and that's thanks to the amount of contributors that you get if you go open source, for example, it's really to make sure that everything is double-checked, triple-checked, and that you can get rid as much as possible of these human errors, misconfigurations. You know, one of the leaks I was mentioning at the beginning, I believe it was the hotel.com data leak. This started with a misconfigured AWS S3 bucket open to anyone out the internet because of a human error. So as long as we'll have people involved, and that's necessary, and we will never be able, not to use people in the way you set up and manage those infrastructure, then this will have to be taken into consideration. Okay, and maybe I'd like to touch upon the subject of, COVID. The COVID crisis. The potential for data leaks increases massively with the fact of working from home. Have you seen any change in the ways you detect potential data breaches or data leaks on email boxes or on the internet, Adrien?
Yes, COVID has been leveraged massively on the email threats. To have a successful scam, you need two things. You need a context. So because it relies on a context, users believe in it. And you need a sense of urgency. And because there is this sense of urgency, then users, they don't think much and they act. That's how you can have a successful scam in the general world. And that's how it works in email also. And COVID is a great opportunity for hackers because you have both in the same event. You have the context. It's been going on since more than 1 year. I mean, for more than 1 year now. And so we have seen a huge increase of emails leveraging the COVID topic. And you have the sense of urgency. You can imagine all the creativity we put in place to generate the sense of urgency with the mask, with the new guidance in companies to reopen or not, the quarantine, different rules, and etc. And so because of COVID, in terms of volumes, I mean, we have seen double digits increase on threats. And we have seen the threats increasing also the volume of compromised accounts. And to get back to the topic, when they compromise an account in the supply chain, that's how they are jumping on the other nodes of the supply chain, going either to the suppliers or the customers, and etc. And what's interesting is that COVID is an event, and there is a repetitive model in the threat landscape. Every time you have an event, you have the same behavior. They leverage the event and they use the sense of urgency that is connected to it. We have seen the same for the US elections, for example. Race attacks and sense of urgency, you should vote or don't vote, or etc. And that's why we have changed actually our approach regarding to that. We help our customers now to track threats and also legitimates based on what events they're being attached to. So like COVID official emails or COVID threats, US elections, and etc. But clearly it's repetitive, and all events are affecting the threat landscape and COVID massively and worldwide.
So it's a good opportunity for you.
Well, it's a sad good opportunity, we can call it like that, yes. I think we will all be happier without the COVID, honestly.
Is that the same for you, Camille?
I wouldn't say it's a good opportunity, but it's for cybersecurity as a whole a crash test, I would say, because practices are changing like crazy, and everyone needs to adapt to that. Really, the parallel I used to make when we were hit by the first wave of COVID between the pandemic and cybersecurity world is that what we call the attack surface, meaning all the ways you could be attacked as a company, this attack surface, it grew exponentially the exact same way we saw the curves of contaminations of COVID growing exponentially. And the reason was super simple, right? Every organization, they used to have to secure one office or a couple of offices or all their offices around the globe. And now, all of a sudden, when you work with a company that has 100,000 employees and more, you have hundreds and thousands of offices to secure. So it definitely grew exponentially. And what that means is that the uses, they change. You used to directly go through IT to have every single procedure done or approved. This is not the case anymore. What we have seen skyrocketing is what we call shadow IT. You know, all those tools that you use on your side. I don't know if you're in marketing, you may want to use Canva. If you are on the product side, you may want to use your own project management solution. Whatever the area, same for finance with your own ERP, calculators, and so on, you probably are going to find the tools that you like, use that on your professional machines and laptops, and go a little bit around, because you're remote, because you're from home, the constraints of your IT organization. And that's what I meant by shadow IT exploding. We clearly saw a drastic increase of attacks materializing through shadow IT. And to go back to what Adrien was sharing, compromised accounts and credentials. You go on your Canva account, you use your professional email address, you use the same password potentially, and Canva or that other application or tool that you're using gets, for whatever reason, hacked. All right, the hackers now, they have a clear path to enter your organization and start any network penetration tentatives that they want to run. So yes, clearly COVID means a big harm and big hit potentially for companies. And all of us in the cybersecurity space, we have our role to play here to help against that.
Okay. I wanted to maybe ask you if you could share maybe your thoughts on another very big trend today, is the moving toward cloud computing. The move of corporate data to cloud computing. How could it affect your business? And does it mean that the whole data supply chain will be processed one day on a single platform? And what does it mean for you? Camille?
Big change here again. Will it be processed on a single platform? I don't think so. And I think moving forward, you'll have as many platforms or clouds as you have teams, projects, or entity. So clearly here, what I'm saying is that the cloud migration is huge. Like a couple of years ago, I think the market size was 100 billion a year. In 2022, it's going to be 350 billion a year USD. So growing like crazy here as well. But putting all your eggs in a single basket might not make sense when you are a large global corporation, and you want also to diversify risks and make sure that you not only bet on a single vendor or platforms. But what's true is that cloud helps. It helps scale organization. Ourselves, as a scale-up CybelAngel, we use massively the cloud more and more every single day. It's a massive business opportunity for us. But again, using more and more of these cloud platforms means we share more and more data externally outside of our corporate firewall, and that increases the attack surface. We talk about GitHub, for example, for open repositories for source code. We talk about open databases. Everyone uses Elasticsearch or MongoDB, host that in whatever cloud platform out there. Again, it can be exposed, it can be breached. So it's many more constraints that we have to take care about, especially when we talk about data security here in the cloud.
Adrien, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Camille just said, especially the expression all eggs in the same basket within the same company, but also within the supply chain. I think from the security standpoint, it's not a good news if we consider that all the companies within a supply chain might rely on the same cloud, because it means you have one platform to study as a hacker to find the weaknesses and break through. And if you can break through, then you can leverage your attack much more. So I think if we step back and we look at the world, our institutions need to make sure we can have a great amount of cloud leaders that are operating and competing each others to make sure that the supply chain will rely on different cloud vendors. And it shows something else also. It requires to rethink the security strategy, because we usually commonly think the security strategy like a territory. I need to secure my company, so I will set up gates and controls, and I will check what gets in and what gets out. And with the move to the cloud, that doesn't work anymore. There is no border security anymore. It doesn't make any sense. And so the security strategy of every single company relying on the cloud, and ideally multi-cloud, like Camille said, it needs to be. The security architecture needs to be designed component by component and secure independently component by component, and the interactions between all the components. We should not consider the cloud like one territory and the company like another territory, and we secure the borders. No.
Okay. Maybe I think one last question before we wrap up. I noticed that CybelAngel hired a former top FBI executive recently to lead its US operation. Do cybersecurity companies have to look for other kind of skills such as these to guarantee a good protection of data, you'd say, Adrien?
Camille, you mean?
Yeah, but I wanted to start with you because I haven't. But
go first, Camille.
All right, happy to go ahead, but Adrien next. Do we have to? I'd say the answer is no. Should we, however, yes. And we need to leverage these new types of expertise as well. There is one thing that is happening in the cybersecurity world. This is the skills shortage. Everyone is trying to recruit, but we struggle because really the demand is high and the supply is very low. And it takes time to train and hire security professionals that know their stuff. So a good way or a good pool of talent, indeed, governments, agencies, professionals. So Todd, FBI executive, is a great example of this. And actually, cybersecurity is really one of the few spaces where states have a considerable step ahead of private types of organization, when it comes to security, defense, and military. So we are very glad to have Todd on our end to help, provide a new source of expertise and also help recruit, because it helps quite a bit when you have an FBI executive in the company to attract the best talents. But Adrien, I'm sure you had a thought about it.
No, we actually had in a different way. We actually had a similar strategy. Our challenge is the amount of data we are collecting and processing to improve the technology itself. Again, it's like 90 billion data point a day. It's from many different countries, from the US, in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, and they have different jurisdictions, by the way. And it becomes a challenge because the same data can rely on multiple jurisdictions. If you have, like, from a US customer and the data is being carried to Europe, then you have two jurisdictions applying to the same data. And so when we, as a company, when we started to think, okay, we need a strong and solid legal department as a core to rely on those data, then of course we started to look at the talents and we started to look at the industries where the legal is crazy strict. And so I remember when we made the decisions, we brought up a talent, a high executive level from the pharmaceutical industry in order to ramp up our legal department and be very strict on the data privacy.
Okay, sorry, I'm receiving text messages telling me that this session must draw to an end. Well, thank you very much, guys, and thanks everyone for listening, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the program with France AI. Thank you.